In a cramped, neglected apartment, Cha Jin-hyuk woke with a violent start, gasping for air as sweat drenched his shirt. He roared curses into the empty room before confusion replaced anger. He looked at his hands and touched his chest. He was alive. His secret skill, soul transmission, had succeeded. In his final moments before death, he cast the forbidden spell to migrate his soul into a new vessel. Purple necrotic flames flickered over his younger body. He had a second chance. The memories of betrayal burned fresh. He could have cleared the 600th floor alone. He was the one-man army, the master necromancer. They offered help only to lure him into a trap. The dying Jin-hyuk had summoned his last mana and vowed revenge, promising his death was only temporary. Now back in the past, the new Jin-hyuk tumbled from bed, his eyes burning with malice. He vowed to grind their souls into dust and turn them into his undead servants. A vibrating sound cut through his rage. He grabbed the smartphone, perplexed by the sleek technology. When he checked the date, his eyes widened. August 21st, 2023. 10 years had vanished. He tried to summon his power, screaming for his energy to awaken, straining every muscle. Nothing happened. There wasn't a single drop of mana in this body. He tore open the curtains and saw the tower dominating the skyline. He would have to climb again from scratch. Panic briefly set in until he checked his phone for news. A headline caught his eye. Choi Kyung-hoon had reached floor 800. The panic dissolved into dark amusement. They only managed 200 floors in an entire decade. He could catch up. The gap wasn't insurmountable. He grabbed a dark hoodie, resolve hardening. Training outside was pointless. His body might be that of a novice, but his mind held the accumulated wisdom of the Death Star. He would use every ounce of that knowledge to regain his strength and exact revenge. At the base of the Soul Tower, Jin-hyuk merged with the crowds of hopefuls gathered there. People chattered nervously about getting rich or dying on the first floor. He ignored their amateur speculation. Fragments of memories flashed through his mind. A skeletal figure with a glowing blue eye. A horned woman fleeing through burning forests. A powerful demon declaring his presence. These were echoes of the path he once walked and would carve again. A holographic message appeared overhead. The tower entrance was opening. The massive gates rumbled, revealing a swirling vortex of blue light. Civilians fled in terror, a stampede of bodies desperate to escape. Amidst the chaos, one figure walked calmly against the tide, hands in his pockets, pace steady and deliberate. While the world screamed and ran, he stepped directly into danger. Dark violet energy crackled around him as he pulled back his hood, revealing sharp eyes glowing with supernatural light. A shark-like grin spread across his face as he savored the moment. This was the start of his revenge. The stone gates slam shut with earth-shaking force, sealing the entrance as dust fills the air. Cha Jin-hyuk stands at the center of a glowing magical circle as a holographic interface welcomes him to the tutorial stage. Before him stretches an impossibly long luminous pathway, cutting through a technological void, bordered by towering digital walls pulsing with faint light. This tutorial carries a brutal reputation as the most merciless starting point in existence. The gauntlet demands days of non-stop running through lethal traps, breaking more climbers than any other floor. An objective window materializes, commanding him to reach the destination while bypassing traps. All damage will recover upon reaching either endpoint. Jin-hyuk summons his status window. His expression darkens immediately. Every stat sits at level 1. Strength, HP, agility, intelligence, and mana all pathetically weak. His physical type reads as mana-based, with 2 traits listed, gluttony and a second marked with question marks. The reality hits hard. These aren't the stats he possessed before death. Traits and physical talents differ between souls. He's starting from absolute zero. A predatory grin splits his face. If he's starting from nothing, then he'll take everything this tutorial offers. He launches forward. The moment he crosses the threshold, red alerts flash. Magic arrow traps activate, and energy projectiles materialize from darkness. Arrow traps only become visible the instant they fire. He twists mid-stride, letting bolts sail past as his retained experience guides his movements. The barrage intensifies beyond expectation. Energy tears through his shoulder and grazes his cheek. Blood sprays, but he pushes forward with burning determination. He needs more damage. He sprints directly into the storm's heart as arrows pierce his chest, arms, and legs. His body jerks violently with each impact, but he forces himself forward until his legs collapse. His vision fades as the blue path turns crimson beneath him. White light envelops him as the system resets. Pain vanishes instantly. He gasps, finding himself back on the starting platform as green healing energy restores his body completely. All damage has been recovered. Though his body is flawless, phantom pain lingers in his mind. Fresh blood trails mark the distance of his suicide sprint. Mindless charging won't work. He stares at the red pools on the ground, remembering the traits that once made him Earth's strongest. Dark violet energy swirls around his fingers as his eyes glow with ominous purple light. Hunger awakens inside him. Gluttony allows him to devour non-living things and make them his own. Shadowy tendrils erupt from his hand, latching onto the spilled blood. The liquid boils and rises, sucked into the dark vortex he controls. The system doesn't register blood as living matter anymore. The blood he spilled is lifeless, and the experience gained from spilling it becomes his. Power surges through his veins as the system chimes with rewards. All stats increase by 1. Progress bars for blood loss, penetration, pain, and unconsciousness inch forward. The tutorial has become an all-you-can-eat buffet. He studies the scrolling data with satisfaction. His tolerance experience skyrockets without complex equipment as his body naturally withstands raw status abnormalities. It will take a week of brutal grinding to clear the tutorial and establish his foundation, but he'll tank every shot and use gluttony to devour stats from this ordeal. The onslaught continues mercilessly. Arrows rain down, turning air into a deadly gauntlet as holographic displays track damage clinically. Red bars fill steadily, pushing him to death's brink and back repeatedly. 1 month passes in this cycle of agony and regeneration. He stands before the swirling exit portal, face pale and breathing ragged like a walking corpse. Arrows protrude from his back like quills. The system finally flashes the word he's been waiting for. Finish. He steps through, leaving a blood trail behind. Green energy washes over him as the system congratulates him on clearing the tutorial. The process took longer than anticipated because of constant oscillation between life and death. A new window interrupts his peace. Several gods and demons are taking interest in his peculiar method. Anger flares as he recognizes this intrusive attention. He clenches his fists, veins bulging as he screams at the invisible audience. Behind reality's veil, immense silhouettes loom. A 9-tailed fox, a hulking minotaur, and other ancient entities watch him like entertainment, gauging his worth as potential disciples. The system pings with their reactions. A god is angered by his profanity, while a demon finds his defiance amusing. None reveal their true names, playing games to lure him in. A massive red notification shatters the pattern. The entity known as Peak of All Evil greets him casually. His eyes widen in genuine shock as he recognizes Baal, the demonic figure with curved horns and burning eyes that clung to him like a parasite in his previous life, obsessed with making him a disciple. The demon's avatar sends a heart-shaped emote, oblivious to his fury. Because the notorious Peak of All Evil showed interest, other entities flock to the spectacle. Notifications clutter his vision. The god of thunder wants a private word. An entity named Macaque has taken a liking. He shakes with frustration, declaring their pestering incredibly annoying. The system informs him that Peak of All Evil is apologizing, then consoling. He ignores the pathetic display, refusing to become anyone's pawn. Even if he chose a patron, Baal is definitely not an option. With a dismissive swipe, he cuts through the red screen. Finally alone, he turns attention to rewards. The screen tallies massive gains in strength, health, agility, intelligence, and mana. He obtained tolerances for blood loss, pain, unconsciousness, and penetration. His body glows with faint purple aura as power settles into his bones. Gaining mana at this stage is rare, only possible because his innate affinity allowed forced increase. A new notification catches his eye. Due to growth progression, a trait has been unlocked. He frowns, confused, as he already possesses gluttony. The system reveals the addition, All-Rounder. It's a talent allowing proficiency in everything, offering adjustment bonuses during training and combat based on skill level. A wide, manic grin spreads across his face. This is the piece he was missing. With this, the impossible becomes possible. A vision dominates his mind of a warrior transcending all limits. Against smoldering, war-torn skies, a legendary figure sits enthroned, radiating untouchable power. A massive broadsword rests in his grip while a wizard's staff, battle axe, and longbow stand ready behind him. He represents the pinnacle of all disciplines, an all-master. The grandeur shatters as a crimson holographic window manifests. The message declares that Peak of All Evil is curious about his status window. The sudden intrusion catches him completely off guard. Cold sweat beads on his temple as he stammers, unable to comprehend why such malevolent presence turned attention toward him. Beneath him, a violet magical circle ignites, swirling with arcane energy, marking the commencement of his dark path as the All-Master Necromancer. A crimson window materializes behind Jin Hyuk, displaying another message from the Peak of All Evil. Irritation crosses his face as he turns sharply, telling the entity to stop bothering him. He's moving to the next floor regardless of whether it follows. A notification immediately confirms the demon is now accompanying him. He steps through the portal into a vast, digitized space. Golden grid lines and floating data streams fill the room of choice and training. Holographic weapons hover everywhere. Swords, axes, staves, all waiting to be claimed. The system welcomes him, instructing him to select a weapon and class before transport to the first floor. Walking through the arsenal, he remembers his past life when he discovered his mana-type affinity and chose the mage path without hesitation. This time is different. His hand reaches not for a staff but for a simple wooden bow. He grips the handle, testing its weight, deciding to put his new all-rounder trait to the test. He commands the system to generate a practice target. Glowing circles materialize before him. Without hesitation, he draws and releases. The arrow finds its mark instantly with fluid precision. Unsatisfied with static targets, he orders the system to generate attacking opponents. A red warning flashes, cautioning that fighting without a selected class is highly dangerous. A confident grin spreads across his face. He doesn't care. The room reconfigures. White humanoid droids with red sensors materialize and immediately charge. He moves like a blur, arrows piercing lead droid sensors with machine gun speed. As they close distance, he doesn't retreat. He dodges a mechanical fist and retaliates brutally, using the bow itself to smash through metal plating. Training bot wreckage scatters across the floor, but his blood is just starting to pump. He discards the bow, snatching a sword and spear from floating racks while shouting for stronger opponents. The system obliges, summoning a massive construct towering over him. He launches airborne, driving the spear downward with catastrophic force. The impact crumples the giant robot, flattening its head into its torso amid debris clouds. He lands gracefully, spinning to clear remaining infantry bots. Above him, floating spherical drones hum to life. He identifies them as ranged attackers. Energy beams rain down, exploding where he stood moments prior. He dances through smoke and fire untouched. The system flashes a final warning that these are the most dangerous targets available. Unfazed, he looks up with a smirk, questioning if this is truly the best the room offers. He decides to use his specialty, gripping a curved staff. Digital fragments fracture the air as he surges forward with blurring velocity. He gathers violent purple energy in his palm, arcane script circling his wrist, and releases a magic arrow. The projectile tears through the room, obliterating the target in a blinding violet eruption. As smoke clears, he looks at his hands, genuinely impressed. The all-rounder trait is far more potent than anticipated. It feels like he's wielded these weapons for years. A holographic notification materializes, announcing he's cleared a hidden achievement. By using at least one weapon from every category, he's unlocked the All-Master class with a massive 5,000-point attack boost. Sweat beads on his forehead as he stares, stunned that All-Master was an actual hidden class. The interface prompts his final decision, warning that leaving this room means the opportunity vanishes forever. His mind races. Despite overwhelming stats, he cannot abandon his greatest advantage by locking into this main class. He needs to choose another class to secure his future. He addresses the administrator directly, commanding the system to assign All-Master as his subclass instead. The system's rejection is immediate and cold, unable to fulfill the request. Shocked, he demands to know why. The answer appears with a padlock icon. Subclass slots are locked content, only available after clearing the 100th floor. He grits his teeth, frustrated that he forgot this crucial early-game detail. He cannot leave without selecting a class, but taking All-Master as primary would waste his potential. A risky idea forms. He asks if accumulated accomplishment points can force the subclass slot open early. The system pauses, displaying a question mark, seemingly baffled a beginner would know such a function exists. It confirms points can alter the system but remains suspicious of his knowledge. He presses negotiation, offering 5,000 points. The system calculates and returns with a deal. The unlock costs exactly 5,050 points. A red warning flashes. He's short by 50 points. He sighs, realizing he must resort to his last card. He calls out to Baal, declaring intent to use the demon's presence for his own gain. Conversing with Baal triggers a new achievement. Talking to the Great Demon. The reward is 200 accomplishment points. On screen, Baal manifests as a blushing, heart-filled text box asking if he did well. Disgusted, he retches and begs the entity to never do that again, irritating the demon further. Ignoring the bickering deity, he immediately uses newly acquired points to finalize the deal. The transaction clears. He's successfully defied the tower's natural progression, securing All-Master as a subclass while leaving his main class slot open. The room dissolves around him. Purple electricity crackles violently as teleportation initiates. He throws his head back, a manic grin stretching across his face as anticipation takes over. He's ready to start his revenge. Light flashes and the digital realm shatters, depositing him onto the first floor. Coral forest. Below in darkened woods, a desperate party is backed against a tree line by feral goblins. The group panics, wondering how they can climb the tower if the first floor is this brutal. As a muscular goblin leaps forward to deliver a killing blow, the sky above tears open. Jinyuk crashes down like a meteor, the impact sending a shockwave that knocks monsters back. He lands in a crouch, blue lightning dancing around his body. He lifts his head, predatory gaze locking onto the stunned goblin, identifying it as his first prey. With a feral grin, he brings his heavy staff down in a crushing arc. Dark violet mana trails behind the weapon like a comet's tail before colliding with Earth. The impact is catastrophic, releasing a shockwave of pure force that detonates outward. The ground shatters, sending debris flying as the attack flattens the target instantly. As purple haze dissipates, he stands casually amid cracked pavement, pressing his staff into the defeated creature's spine. His allies watch in stunned silence, weapons lowered as they process the overwhelming power display. He looks down at the broken body with nostalgic amusement rather than strain, noting it's been a while since he faced a kobold. In the forest periphery, remaining pack members freeze. The sight of their kin obliterated in one blow sends primal fear rippling through them. Their teeth chatter and sweat slicks their fur as they shriek in alarm, eyes bulging with realization that they're hopelessly outmatched. Jin-hyuk turns attention toward trembling survivors. The shadow of his hood obscures the upper half of his face, leaving only a sharp, predatory smile visible. He shifts stance, dark aura intensifying until it wreathes him in sinister violet flame. His eyes ignite with hunger transcending mere combat, glowing with anticipation of the harvest to come. He speaks with voice dropping an octave as magical pressure swells around him, wondering aloud what he'll earn if he devours all of them. The adventurers stare at the hooded figure in disbelief. The large warrior supports his unconscious companion while watching the stranger standing over a fallen creature. Sweat beads on his forehead as he processes what just happened. This mage, wielding a purple-gemmed staff, didn't cast a spell to kill the beast. He crushed it with a single devastating kick. The sheer physical power from a magic user leaves them stunned. The dagger-wielding adventurer steps forward with a nervous grin, eager to recruit this powerful ally. He suggests they join forces since combining their strength would make them unstoppable. Purple energy flares around the hooded man's face as he tells them to leave. The adventurers freeze, their hopeful expressions shattering into terror. His dark aura rises behind him as he clarifies the threat. If they touch even one monster, they die. The killing intent is unmistakable. Stammering terrified agreements, they turn and bolt into the forest. With the nuisance gone, Jin-hyuk turns attention to two screeching kobolds armed with crude blades. He asks if they came to avenge their comrade. One leaps forward, slashing wildly, but he weaves through the attack effortlessly. Instead of casting spells, he slams his wooden staff directly into the monster's face, crunching bone and sending it reeling. He taunts the creatures while dominating physically, questioning why they aren't attacking properly. He leaps onto the remaining kobold's shoulders. The beast freezes, eyes wide with confusion and fear. He charges a sphere of brilliant purple light in his palm, declaring escape isn't an option. He unleashes a magic arrow at point-blank range. Violet energy erupts from his hand, blasting through the kobold's skull and illuminating the dark forest. The creature collapses instantly. Blue holographic windows materialize, welcoming him to the first floor and listing loot. Kobold monastones. He scoffs at the delayed response, noting he's already finished and currently looting. The quest counter shows 3 out of 10 defeated. He dismisses the difficulty, thinking he could slaughter 100 right now. Since he's already here, grinding for the Slayer achievement would be efficient. He recalls going to great lengths in his past life to obtain every Slayer title, awarded for killing 1,000 of a specific monster type. Standing over the fresh corpse, he decides to attend another pressing need, his hunger. He extends his hand toward the body and invokes gluttony. Crimson and violet energy tears from the carcass, taking the shape of spectral flames rushing into his palm. He throws his head back, laughing as energy surges into him. His eyes glow with demonic red light. The consumption grants more than sustenance. He feels the creature's memories flooding his mind, its strength becoming his own. Along with raw power comes sudden clarity. He can now understand kobold language perfectly. A holographic window materializes, illuminating the dark forest. He scans the readout, his brow furrowing as he processes the numbers. His name sits at the top, followed by a blank primary class entry, yet the subclass reads All Master. Below that, statistics are staggering. Strength at 21, HP at 19, and mana topping the charts at 31. He stares at the screen, sweat tracing his face. The growth is unnatural. These physical parameters rival a climber who's already reached the 10th floor. A theory strikes him. Because his subclass is All Master, the system might be granting him passive stat bonuses from every single class simultaneously. Sharp, searing pain strikes his mind. His left eye flashes deep demonic red as a suppressed memory forces its way to the surface. The forest dissolves, replaced by a damp cavern interior. Terrified villagers huddle in cages, screaming about an angry monster. A desperate mother clings to bars, begging for her child. Looming over the scene, bathed in menacing crimson aura, is a hunched robed figure wielding a skull-topped staff, the Kobold Lord. The vision snaps back to reality. Rather than fear, a wide, predatory grin spreads across his face. The appearance of a Lord-tier monster isn't a threat. It signals a monster wave, a chaotic event where armies of creatures flood the zone. For a veteran like him, this isn't disaster. It's a golden opportunity to farm experience and secure the coveted Slayer achievement in one sweep. He knows he cannot face a wave alone with just a staff. He needs an army of his own. Standing over the fresh kobold corpse, dark violet energy swirls around his hand as he reaches out. He commands the dead to rise. The corpse twitches violently as dark magic seeps into its marrow. In a gruesome display, flesh sheds away and bones snap into place, knitting together under violet mana's influence. Two skeletal mages rise from the earth, hollow ribcages glowing with eerie purple light. A system notification chimes, congratulating him on successfully changing his main class to Necromancer. He looks at his new minions with satisfaction. Because he possesses the All-Master subclass and his past life's knowledge, switching battle styles is trivial. However, his ambition reaches further. He sets sights on a specific hidden class available only on this floor. One skeleton suddenly jerks its head, jaw clattering as it alerts its master to a nearby presence. He turns to see living kobolds huddled in underbrush, knees knocking in sheer terror at the sight of undead. He smiles coldly, raising his weapon and signaling his soldiers. He orders them to slaughter every kobold in sight. The skeletons obey instantly, channeling volatile energy through bony fingers. Beams of destructive magic tear through the clearing, obliterating the trembling monsters in blinding light. As dust settles, a small blue mana crystal spins through the air. He snatches it deftly, checking a notification tracking his kill count. He ignores remaining carnage and moves deeper into the woods, eyes scanning for a specific landmark. He stops before a dilapidated wooden cabin, almost swallowed by overgrowth. It looks abandoned, exactly as he remembers. He creaks the door open and steps inside, relieved to find the dusty interior undisturbed. Turning to his skeletal escorts, he orders them to hold position at the entrance. He walks to the room's center and inspects the floorboards. He lifts his leg and brings his heel down with crushing force. The rotten wood shatters, revealing a dark stone staircase descending into the earth. Dust motes dance in the shaft of light, revealing the hidden passage. He peers into the depths, a satisfied smirk returning as he confirms he's found exactly what he was looking for. He ascends the rugged stone staircase, darkness pierced only by ethereal blue glow of mana crystals scattered along the path. He moves with purpose, a heavy sack slung over his shoulder, carelessly allowing a glowing gem to slip and bounce down the cold steps. His thoughts consume the legend of this place, the secret buried on the first floor. It houses a hidden class, a high-ranking mage capable of commanding souls. But specifically, he seeks something even more ancient, a spirit master. At the summit, the narrow passage opens into a vast silent hall. In the center, bathed in pale dungeon light, lies a massive ornate stone coffin. The air here is heavy, thick with the presence of the very first spirit master who chose to hide in this tomb. He drops his sack to the floor, precious stones spilling unheeded as he steps up to the dais. He reaches out, fingers curling around the stone lid's lip. With steady force, he shoves the cover aside. The reaction is instantaneous. A violent geyser of cerulean energy erupts from the sarcophagus, flooding the room with blinding magical light. From the swirling vortex's heart, a skeletal figure rises, clad in tattered remains of a formal coat. The ancient energy surges wildly as the entity known as Vulcan floats upward from the class-changing coffin, skeletal form outlined against roaring blue flames. He watches the spectacle, hood falling back to reveal messy blue hair and sharp violet eyes. He shows no fear, only calculating intensity. High above, the skeletal mage looks down, blue fire burning in empty sockets. The jaw unhinges and a voice resonates from the void, echoing with centuries of weight as Vulcan addresses the intruder, asking if the young man before him is his descendant. Blue spiritual energy ripples from the towering skeletal figure as he extends a bony hand toward the young man in the hoodie. Vulcan's voice deepens dramatically, demanding to know if this intruder is his descendant. The young man doesn't flinch, greeting the skeleton by name with a casual, unimpressed tone. The mystical atmosphere shatters instantly. Vulcan freezes mid-pose, a bead of sweat trickling down his skull. The skeleton admits the lack of surprise has made his entrance incredibly awkward. The young man responds dryly, pointing out that a necromancer shouldn't be shocked by skeletons. His calm demeanor stems from reading Vulcan's journal beforehand. Memories surface of discovering the journal of Spirit Master Vulcan in a dim library after hitting rock bottom. Back when he changed his class to mage and lost his worth, that hidden item led him back to the first floor. He recalls his previous failure to summon Vulcan during a chaotic battle. Now he's moved past awe and focuses solely on the objective. Vulcan's eye sockets flare with blue energy as he declares he likes this attitude, comparing the young man favorably to a mannerless individual from 10 years ago. The young man's expression darkens at the unwanted comparison, a vein pulsing on his temple. He contemplates destroying the undead chatterbox but restrains himself, interrupting Vulcan's monologue to demand they proceed with the class change immediately. Vulcan adopts a lecturing tone, insisting the procedure isn't simple. To become a spirit master, superior to a mere necromancer, the candidate must reach the class-changing tower on the 10th floor. The young man cuts him off, stating flatly he's already a necromancer. He summons a holographic status window displaying his credentials. Class, Necromancer. Subclass, All Master. Highest floor climbed being only the first. Vulcan's jaw drops, eye sockets shining with blinding light. He gushes over how someone changed their class without reaching the 10th floor, but his praise includes another comparison to the talented individual from the past. The weight of comparison nearly buckles the necromancer's knees. Realizing he's derailed the process, Vulcan laughs and raises both arms, summoning a torrent of blue spirits in a chaotic vortex. The ritual begins. The narrative shifts through time to when Vulcan was human, a climber who ruled his domain surrounded by skeletal armies. Despite being the strongest necromancer, he remained unsatisfied, seeking power beyond physical limitations. Consumed by research at his desk, he dismissed liches and death knights as insufficient, yearning for something completely different. His madness and genius converged on a single realization: the soul. He decided to call upon souls of the dead, creating summons surpassing all existing undead. Through sheer will and intellect, he succeeded, birthing the Spirit Master class. The history shifts to a dying lineage. An old man lies withered on his deathbed, his physical form reaching its limit. With his passing, the ancient Spirit Master class stands on erasure's precipice. Refusing to let his legacy vanish, the old master makes a desperate gamble. His hand glows with eldritch energy over a complex rune circle. He enacts his final resort, necromancy performed upon his own soul. His flesh falls away, replaced by bleached bone and spectral blue fire. He sheds humanity, waiting eternally for a successor. Centuries pass until skeletal Vulcan stands triumphantly before the hooded climber, having finally found a vessel capable of walking the path he left behind. The hooded figure doesn't shrink away. Instead, volatile purple aura explodes from his chest. Vulcan's jaw drops, witnessing the raw potential as the young man becomes engulfed in roaring violet inferno. Vulcan announces this young man is the third Spirit Master. Vulcan begins tutelage immediately, gesturing as he explains using the soul crucible to capture souls and summon them as servants. The young man grins predatorily, thanking Vulcan before declaring his first capture will be Vulcan himself. Caught up in ceremony, Vulcan initially misses the threat. He clasps bony hands together in congratulation, urging his descendant to climb the tower and spread his name. The climber interrupts with a sharp, dismissive wave, telling Vulcan to do it himself. The blue flames in Vulcan's sockets flicker in confusion before realization strikes. Vulcan roars, questioning if he forgot the journal's promise. The climber ignores the outburst, stepping forward with threatening gait as purple energy swirls around his feet. He remarks that pushing work onto others is a bad habit he'll fix for free. Vulcan steps back in alarm as the climber commands soul collect. A vortex of violet gravity erupts from his chest. Vulcan screams as suction force violently drags him forward. He digs skeletal heels into stone, his spirit form stretching and distorting under immense pressure. He yells resistance, but the force is too great. With a sickening crunch, Vulcan's skeletal form shatters. His skull flies through the air, detached from his ribcage, as magic overwhelms him. The climber watches with a triumphant, manic grin. Even in defeat, Vulcan manifests partially to raise a bony middle finger, screeching that this gesture is offensive on Earth. The chaotic light dies. Silence returns as a small summoning circle glows on the floor with soft purple hue. Inside sits miniature, fully reformed Vulcan, utterly bewildered. The climber looms over his new servant, mocking whether the prison is comfortable. He explains he utilized Magic Wall, a low-class spell, to construct this personal prison. Inside the translucent cube, the skeleton slams bony fists against the energy field, boasting he can shatter this low-tier magic at any moment. A wicked grin stretches across the man's face, eyes glowing with sinister violet hue. He reveals he scattered purple cobalt mana stones along the staircase, ready to trigger in-chain reaction. The real question is whether Vulcan can break free before capture completes. Doubt rattles the skeleton's composure. He trembles, wondering who this human is. It seems impossible for a first-floor climber to possess such advanced skills and tactical foresight. The man pulls back his hood, revealing sharp features and dark hair. He confesses that while he failed in his previous life, this time he can finally capture Vulcan. The skeleton's empty sockets widen in sheer terror at the concept of a previous life. The man taunts further, questioning if Vulcan is still the second Spirit Master or should now be deemed the third. Recognition turns to horror. The skeleton screams the name Cha Jin-hyuk in despair and disbelief. Jin-hyuk extends his hand, palm erupting with violet energy as he commands soul collection to begin. Torrents of purple magic swirl violently, latching onto white bone and tearing at Vulcan's essence. The skeleton becomes engulfed in blinding power, form distorted by relentless pull. As chaotic light fades, energy condenses before vanishing. Vulcan stands shivering, resistance completely broken, looking small and defeated. Jin-hyuk looks down at his new servant with a satisfied smile, assuring the bound spirit not to be upset. With confident demeanor, he declares that now they're united, everything Vulcan ever desired will come true. Cha Jin-hyuk strides through the moonlit forest with an army of skeleton soldiers trailing behind him, their bones wrapped in vibrant purple energy casting eerie shadows across the foliage. Digital interfaces flicker around him, a red window warns that the peak of all evil watches his every move, while a blue notification reveals the death-observing demon's curiosity about his class. Jin-hyuk smirks at these divine spectators, knowing neither gods nor demons can cross into the sanctum of a class change. He silently promises to show them exactly what they want, to see if they can manage some patience. He stops and dismisses the skeleton soldiers with a casual snap, finding them too weak for the task ahead. A far more powerful presence manifests Vulcan, a man with sharp features and spectacles, wreathed in violet flames, collapses to his knees. Rage burns in his eyes as he demands to know how a mere mortal dares bind him as a common spirit soldier. Jin-hyuk towers over the kneeling spirit with a predatory grin, mocking Vulcan's handsome younger form. The rage intensifies until Jin-hyuk mentions his trait, gluttony. Terror washes over Vulcan as he remembers the legends of that insane skill. If he refuses to obey, Jin-hyuk won't just defeat him, he'll devour his entire existence. Resigned to his fate, Vulcan asks for their objective. Jin-hyuk points toward a massive stone fortress atop a jagged cliff, silhouetted against the full moon. That's where they'll find the Kobold Lord. At the fortress gates, two kobold sentries growl warnings as a lone figure approaches with his head bowed. They point their spears, but Jin-hyuk doesn't stop. He lifts his gaze, eyes glowing with violet light as miasma erupts around his body. A towering spectral beast of violet smoke materializes behind him. He rests a captured spear over his shoulder and orders the cowering guards to lead him to their lord. Deep within the castle, stone doors echo through the halls. Inside the throne room, a wizened kobold with a long white beard senses the overwhelming presence. His eyes flare red as he urgently commands his subordinates to prepare the offerings. Violet apparitions surge through the air, tearing through the goblin horde with ethereal claws. Jin-hyuk moves with lethal grace, locking his fingers around a goblin's skull and chin. He applies crushing pressure, staring into its eyes as they bulge with terror before its life vanishes. Near a dark pit, more goblins scramble to fight, but find no mercy. Jin-hyuk looms over the opening, his hand clamped around another victim's throat before tossing it aside. He draws a steel blade shimmering with blue light as he prepares to deepen the slaughter. A holographic notification appears the peak of all evil is rooting for him with light batons. He scoffs at the absurd image of a hairy-legged deity acting as a cheerleader, dismissing the distraction. Flanked by his twin purple guardians, he strides deeper into the corridors. In the temple's heart, the atmosphere reeks of copper and old stone. A hooded goblin priest plunges a ritualistic dagger into a fresh body, demanding more blood as crimson flows into the altar's grooves. He screams to the ceiling, offering his grisly work to the death-observing demon, his voice echoing with madness. When the next offering is dragged forward, the priest stops. His interest peaks when he realizes the captive isn't human but a Dokubi, marked by two small horns and striking red eyes that burn with defiance. The priest laughs with delight at the prospect of such a high-tier sacrifice. He reaches out with his blood-stained hand to lift her chin, sneering at her resistance. A flash of purple energy cuts through the gloom. The priest spins toward a stone balcony overlooking the ritual floor. There, silhouetted against dim light, stands the intruder who's been carving through his forces. Jin-hyuk stares down at the scene, his lips curling into a dark smile as he considers whether this is a sacrifice or summoning. Wreathed in violet aura, he steps forward and declares that regardless of their intent, they're destined to fail. The protagonist surveys the throne room from the balcony above, his eyes locking onto the bearded figure below. Recognition flashes across his face as he identifies the Kobold Lord, whose body radiates an intense crimson aura. The monster glares upward, hurling insults at the intruder while declaring himself Callum, king of all kobolds. The necromancer responds with mockery, his violet energy crackling to life as he questions why a mere first-floor monster displays such arrogance. Near the throne, the horned female captive recognizes her opportunity. With the Kobold Lord's attention fixed on the intruder, she bolts from the altar, desperate to escape. Callum senses her movement immediately and unleashes his fury. Channeling forbidden power from the death-observing demon, he summons jagged constructs of red energy called corpse spears. The projectiles tear through the air toward the fleeing girl, who collapses in terror as death approaches. A purple streak descends from above. The protagonist intercepts the attack with devastating precision, his leg wrapped in magical energy as he shatters the corpse spear with a single kick. Callum watches in disbelief as his most powerful spell disintegrates into harmless fragments. The necromancer stands protectively before the girl, his confident grin returning as violet energy dances around his frame. The girl stammers her gratitude, but the protagonist dismisses it coldly, instructing her to flee. His attention shifts to her distinctive horns, and his expression changes. He recognizes her as a Dokaebi, a powerful species from the 100th floor with no reason to descend this far. The implication sends a chill through him. Something catastrophic must have occurred in the upper levels. He decides to save her for information later. The elder goblin mage erupts with rage, his withered frame engulfed in crimson energy. The protagonist casually instructs the woman to hide before refocusing on the threat. Callum extends his gnarled hand toward his own minions, channeling dark energy as he screams his intent. He forcibly converts the lesser goblins into living explosives, their bodies swelling grotesquely before detonating in a chain reaction of violent blasts. Fire and force rip through the hallway, yet the protagonist weaves through the chaos like a phantom, emerging completely unharmed. He materializes directly in front of the shocked mage, delivering a devastating punch wrapped in kinetic energy. The impact launches Callum backward, his body bouncing painfully across the floor. The elder creature gasps in bewilderment, unable to comprehend how a first-floor climber possesses such overwhelming strength. The protagonist offers no explanation, leaping into the air for a crushing stomp while taunting that they're just getting started. Terror seizes the mage as the boot descends. He tilts his head back and screams a desperate invocation to the death-observing demon. The ground beneath him erupts with viscous dark red liquid that forces the protagonist to abort his attack. The blood swirls and solidifies into a massive muscular blood golem that towers over the hallway. The protagonist's eyes narrow as he analyzes the hulking creature, questioning how such a high-level familiar could be summoned by this pathetic kobold. The golem strikes with surprising speed, catching the protagonist in a crushing overhead blow that shatters the floor. Safe behind his creation, the mage breaks into manic laughter, proclaiming this his strongest seance. The word catches the protagonist's attention. Deep purple energy begins crackling around his eyes, overshadowing the dungeon's red aura. His expression hardens into supreme arrogance as he questions whether the mage understands who he's addressing. The necromancer's purple aura explodes outward, manifesting into a swarm of shrieking wraiths, distinct skeletal specters with glowing eyes and razor-sharp claws. They surge forward like a tidal wave, descending upon the blood golem with reckless abandon. The spirits tear into the construct's viscous form, ripping through its magical structure with overwhelming dominance. Within seconds, the towering red monster collapses into gore puddles on the stone floor. The kobold elder trembles, his eyes wide with incomprehension. The necromancer stands calmly amid the carnage, blood spattering against his jacket as his loyal legion of purple spirits surrounds him. He explains that even for a lord monster, blood golems aren't something kobolds can create. A holographic window confirms his suspicion. The death-observing demon, Bune, had summoned the golem to test the protagonist's abilities as a spirit master. The kobold elder was merely a disposable toy, his mana forcibly depleted by the demonic intervention. The realization shatters the elder's denial. He opens his mouth wide, screaming that his master will find and avenge him. The necromancer remains unimpressed, summoning fresh waves of purple energy filled with grinning skulls and specters. He coldly invites that confrontation, stating he has much to tell Bune. At his command, the spirit seized the thrashing kobold elder by his limbs, hoisting him high into the air despite his desperate pleas for recognition and mercy. The necromancer turns his back on the scene, raising one hand high. He addresses Bune directly, declaring this the end for the demon's toy and promising payment for testing him. A system message flashes. The death-observing demon laughs heartily, loving the challenge. Accepting this response, the necromancer abruptly clenches his raised fist. The spirits mimic the gesture with crushing force. The elder's body cannot withstand the supernatural pressure and bursts apart violently, painting the air with crimson spray. Silence returns to the dungeon as the necromancer stands motionless, his reflection visible in the expanding pool of blood, his dominance absolute over both mortal and demon alike. The kobold lord takes its final breath, body slumped against the stone altar. Before the protagonist can confirm the kill, a spectral blue skull rips itself from the corpse and attempts to flee. The necromancer snatches it mid-air with dark energy, refusing to let it escape. Using soul orb production, he crushes the spirit into a condensed sphere of blue flame and swallows it whole. System notifications flash indicating minor stat increases in strength, dexterity, and intelligence. The gains are underwhelming, practically meaningless once he reaches the 50th floor. A timid voice calls from behind. The pale woman with short black hair and distinctive white horns introduces herself as Haryu, thanking him for the rescue. The protagonist tests her with a predatory grin, asking what she'd do if he decided to kill or sell a valuable dokibi. Her eyes instantly glow menacing red as dark aura flares around her, declaring she'd handle it. He's amused, recognizing the dokibi obsession with repaying favors and vengeance equally. Dropping the intimidation, he presses for information. Why is a resident of the 100th floor this far down? Haryu hesitates before admitting someone attacked the dokibi village on the 100th floor. The revelation hits hard. Dokibi are formidable within the tower, not easily threatened by ordinary climbers. Only the 4 great species, giants, dragons, demons, or angels, or perhaps the 9-star guild possess enough power for such devastation. Haryu panics as he turns to leave, asking where he's going. Gathering courage, she places a hand over her chest and declares her desire to accompany him. A Dokaibi would be a powerful asset, even a young one. However, he voices skepticism about protecting her. She insists she can handle herself. He counters by pointing out she nearly died to the Kobold Lord moments ago. Flustered, she puffs her cheeks, insisting she only struggled because she let her guard down. Despite the flimsy excuse, her determination is clear. Resigned, he agrees to let her tag along. Above the Kobold Lord's corpse, a luminous purple icon hovers. Rare loot. He notes the chest armor with mild interest before they walk through the stone corridors. Violet energy manifests behind them as Vulcan rises from the magical vortex, announcing there are no living kobolds within the castle. Haryu stares at the undead servant with wide eyes. Vulcan is genuinely surprised she can see him. The protagonist explains some Dokaibi have high affinity with souls. A dark thought surfaces. She's a special Dokaibi. Maybe he could use gluttony and absorb her ability. The temptation lingers briefly before he dismisses it. Keeping her close and training her is the smarter play for now. A blue system interface snaps into existence before his face. Defeating a Lord monster can cause a monster wave. Warning: accepting the quest will disable all safe zones on the first floor. A sharp, satisfied grin stretches across his face as he exclaims his approval. Vulcan and Haryu read the holographic text with dawning horror, questioning if he's actually going to accept it. He responds flatly that there would have been no point defeating a lord otherwise. New windows cascade into view with messages from observers. Peak of all evil thinks this is reckless, but Death Observing Demon offers a reward if he ranks first in contribution. He muses whether the demon is trying to call it even with this offer, deciding he'll make his choice after seeing the reward. Vulcan questions if he really wants to die. The protagonist interrupts with a sinister smile, declaring Vulcan will remain his servant even after death. Haryu stammers that his dark humor is creepy. Ignoring her plea, he extends his hand and presses the yes button on the holographic screen. The world shifts instantly. An ominous red alert floods every player's vision in the region. Someone has accepted a monster wave. Kobolds will attack the village entrance. All safety zones on the first floor will be disabled in moments. In Carol Village Safety Zone, night shatters with the announcement. Players gathered in the town square look up in confusion and terror. Panic sets in immediately. Hunters shout about who accepted the monster wave and how they'll all die. A frantic hunter grabs a passerby by the collar, screaming for anyone who cleared the quest to move to the second floor before it's too late. The victim yells back that he still has 3 quests left. Time has run out. High above the forest clearing outside the village, reality tears open. Violent lightning lashes from the void, creating massive swirling portals of blinding energy. From the rifts emerge grotesque pink-skinned goblins and kobolds with razor-sharp teeth and eyes burning with malice. They spill out not in dozens but in hundreds, an endless tide of flesh and claws. Hunters scream that it's too late, there's too many. A single cold command resonates through the chaos, dismissing the weak. A pillar of cerulean light slams into the earth with physical force, instantly parting the forest gloom. The violent shockwave tears through grass, forcing the goblin horde to shield their eyes. The creatures freeze, trembling as blinding radiance creates an impenetrable wall between them and their targets. Within the swirling vortex of magical energy, a protector emerges. The light dims to reveal a face hidden beneath a blue hood, sharp predatory grin stretching across his features. He looks at the monstrous crowd not with fear but with the excitement of a hunter spotting prey. His voice cuts through the humming air, low and laced with malice, warning that if anyone touches even a single one of them, he'll slaughter the lot. The magical aura flares, solidifying into a terrifying tableau. In the foreground sits the pale woman with obsidian horns, red eyes watching with detached calm. Standing protectively over her is the hooded man, confident smirk unwavering. Looming behind them both is the towering figure cloaked in shadow and authority, glasses reflecting cold blue light from the complex runic circle spinning above his palm. The sheer pressure of his mana weighs down the air as he delivers his lethal conviction. A vertical torrent of blinding light crashes from the heavens, splitting darkness and scattering monsters. Within the dissipating energy stands the hooded man with an arrogant grin, his massive shadowy protector and horned companion behind him. He issues a cold decree, promising instant death to anyone who touches those under his protection. Trapped civilians recoil in terror, stammering that it's too dangerous as they point at the kobold horde rushing toward them. They fail to see the true danger has arrived in their defense. The hooded man ignores their panic, channeling dark violet aura that swirls around his legs. With a low, resonant voice, he speaks a single word: arise. The ground erupts with spectral energy. Skeletal warriors draped in purple flame claw from the void, reforming into a terrifying phalanx. A nearby survivor in plate armor watches in disbelief, questioning how a necromancer could exist on the first floor, a feat impossible for a novice. The shadow soldiers surge forward, crashing into kobold ranks with relentless fury. The horned woman asks if she might participate to earn the Slayer title. The summoner glances at the battlefield, noting his minion's speed in dismantling enemies. He advises her to hurry since his spirit soldiers won't leave scraps. She smiles with mischief and lethal intent. She reaches into empty air, fingers curling around a weapon manifesting from a spatial rift. The summoner watches with interest as she draws a long, ornate blade glowing with pink energy. A kobold leaps at her, but she's faster, swinging upward and cleaving the monster in two with terrifying ease. Watching the young dokebi handle the extraordinary weapon, the summoner realizes the invaders were never targeting civilians. They were hunting her. The dokebi maiden lashes out, sending arcs of pink energy slicing through the air, but the sheer volume of enemies is suffocating. For every goblin she cuts down, another emerges. She realizes there are too many to handle alone. A goblin leaps from behind, its claws outstretched. Pain explodes across her back as talons rake through clothing and flesh. She screams, but the agony triggers a darker memory. Visions of her village engulfed in flames flood her mind. The heat, the screaming, the absolute loss. Compared to watching her home burn, this physical pain is nothing. Fueled by trauma and rage, she spins, her sword moving in a lethal whirlwind that knocks monsters back. She carves a temporary circle of safety, but the exertion drains her remaining stamina. Her legs give out and she collapses to her knees, gasping for air. Her limit has been reached. Looming shadows prepare to deliver the killing blow. A column of violet energy erupts from the ground, blasting goblins away in a violent shockwave. The human climber charges into the fray, his movements a blur of precision and power. He cuts through thick goblin hide with casual ease, wielding strength impossible for a first-floor climber. Watching him, the dokebi girl feels inspiration spark. To survive, climb the tower, and exact revenge for her village, she needs to follow such power. Distracted, she fails to notice a goblin lunging for her face. She freezes, staring death in the eye, but a flash of force obliterates the creature. The older man stands tall, wreathed in spectral purple aura, having saved her again. She questions him, voice laced with confusion and suspicion. She fled from the 100th floor and no one offered aid. She asks if he demands something in return. He pauses before admitting he doesn't truly know, stating simply that spirit soldiers must obey the spirit master's orders. The bespectacled man clarifies his interference was dictated by orders to ensure Jinhyuk's survival. Duty discharged, he announces his departure, refusing to assist further. He walks away, leaving Jinhyuk alone with the horned woman. Jinhyuk tightens his grip on his dagger, acknowledging a silent truth. Within this tower's unforgiving confines, she's the only one who genuinely extended a hand to aid him. The horned woman allows brilliant pink aura to erupt around her. She vows to repay the debt she owes. The energy coalesces into a terrifying crimson mask with jagged teeth. As the mask clicks into place, her eyes ignite with piercing red light. A feral roar tears from her throat, the sheer pressure causing the air to tremble. The sudden energy spike startles the departing mage. Even the summoned skeletons and goblin horde freeze. The monsters stare in paralyzed horror, their instincts screaming of a predator far beyond their league. She strikes. The movement is a blur, a streak of crimson and pink light closing the distance instantly. Her blade cleaves through the lead goblin before it can react. She becomes a storm of violence, sword strokes painting deadly lattice across the battlefield. The attack is so fast that goblin bodies hang suspended before raining down in pieces. Amidst the falling carnage, the masked warrior stands tall, aura blazing. Jinhyuk watches, then looks at a slain goblin near his feet, piecing together a grim realization. The attack on her village wasn't random. The monsters were hunting her and the sword. He decides to bury this secret to spare her the guilt. A blue system window materializes, warning only 1 minute remains until the wave ends. The older mage rejoins the fray, hands crackling with blue lightning arcing into enemy ranks. Jinhyuk and the masked demon fight in perfect synchronization. As the dimensional gate destabilizes and shrinks, a desperate shout draws attention to a lone goblin scrambling toward the closing portal. The hooded necromancer declares it must be the last one, grinning ferally as he channels momentum into a final devastating strike. His blade becomes a blur of lethal motion, sweeping upward with physics-defying force. The hulking monstrosity's roar morphs into terror as it's launched backward. A vortex of blinding white energy erupts, swallowing the beast whole and obliterating it in a magnificent spiral. A holographic interface materializes against the dark sky. The blue panel announces victory. Wave over. Congratulations. You have successfully stopped the wave. The hooded figure stands amidst settling dust, looking over the horizon with a conqueror's posture. He murmurs that of course he did, tone implying failure was never an option. The older man wipes sweat from his brow, staring at the younger man's back while trembling. He whispers that he's really a monster, unable to reconcile the human form with the devastating power witnessed. The crimson aura engulfing the horned woman flickers and fades. She breathes out that it's finally over as adrenaline leaves her body. Her knees buckle and she pitches forward, but a bandaged hand shoots out and catches her. The necromancer supports her weight effortlessly, looking down with serious expression. He asks if she's okay, lecturing that the skill wasn't something to use while exhausted. Realizing who caught her, heat floods her face, turning pale cheeks deep crimson. She stammers her thanks, visibly flustered and steaming with embarrassment at her vulnerability. Fresh system windows pop into existence between them. The blue light reflects in their eyes, wave clear. A reward exists for first, second, and third in contribution. The necromancer's eyes light up with sharp, avaricious gleam. Concern vanishes, replaced by the hunger of a gamer about to claim loot. He smiles, predatory look returning as he stares at the ranking screen, suggesting they get paid now. A command cuts through the tension as a massive pillar of blinding blue light crashes from the heavens. The battlefield goes quiet after the monster wave ends. Over 2,000 corpses litter the forest floor as blue system windows announce the chaos is over. Cha Jin-hyuk stands among the carnage reviewing his rewards. He earned the Kobold Slayer title, gaining 5 points to all stats and 500 accomplishment points. Jin-hyuk calculates the implications. While 5 points might seem small, he knows better. Accomplishment points feed directly into base stats. A confident smile spreads across his face, eyes glowing purple. Combined with his All-Master and Gluttony skills, his power will scale endlessly. The system ranks the survivors. Jin-hyuk takes first place, followed by Haryu and Vulcan. White cubes materialize, drifting into the top 3 hands. Haryu gasps softly while Vulcan points at his chest, utterly bewildered. Jin-hyuk wastes no time demanding Vulcan's reward. The man flinches, sweat beading on his forehead. Internally, Jin-hyuk dismisses turning him into a spirit soldier, deciding he is more useful alive, especially if he hands over his loot. Before Vulcan protests, Haryu steps forward offering her glowing cube as partnership. Instead of gratitude, Jin-hyuk's expression hardens into cold suspicion. Past betrayals sharpen his instincts. He towers over her, purple eyes narrowing. He tells her bluntly that despite allowing her to tag along, trust is not something he gives freely. He leans uncomfortably close, pointing out the second-place reward is too valuable to surrender as a bribe. Such generosity breeds doubt. He demands she prove her loyalty or their alliance ends. Haryu's submissive facade drops, replaced by determination. Brilliant pink energy erupts around her, air humming with magical pressure. Vulcan watches in stunned silence as she reaches into her spirit's core. From the swirling mana, Haryu extracts a terrifying black mask with glowing eyes and crimson horns. She presents both the cube and mask to Jin-hyuk. Vulcan cries out, stammering she is giving an outsider her Dokkaebi mask. He frantically explains that for a Dokkaebi, the mask is their power essence, typically only exchanged during marriage proposals. Jin-hyuk examines the sleek surface, ignoring romantic implications. He asks why she is going to such lengths. She states it is payment for saving her life twice and proof she will never betray him. Vulcan argues the mask's value far exceeds a life debt. Haryu lowers her head, voice dropping to a whisper heavy with suppressed rage. She wants revenge. The weight of her hatred confirms her resolve more than any item could. The woman with obsidian horns recounts searching burning ashes for survivors and finding none. She declares herself the last of the Dokkaibi, and with that comes a singular purpose: to avenge her fallen kind. She offers the crystal, bowing her head. Jin-hyuk observes her raw desire for vengeance, mirroring the darkness he nurtures within himself. She is like him. However, trust is a luxury he cannot afford. He clamps his hand over her face, fingers digging into her cheeks, forcing her gaze up. His voice drops to a lethal register. Betrayal equals death. The threat hangs heavy, but the Dokkaibi's reaction shatters the tension. Instead of cowering, excitement colors her cheeks. She beams, accepting his terms instantly, calling him older brother. The sudden familial intimacy leaves the necromancer visibly rattled, sweat beading on his temple. He brushes off the awkwardness and takes the crystals, absorbing their essence. Brilliant white light erupts, shattering them into pure energy. System prompts flash, detailing acquisition of a mana ring, earring, and necklace. Each boosts mana capacity and reduces consumption. The older man and Haryu watch with confusion as he praises them. They fail to see the strategic implication. For a necromancer, mana is war fuel. These reductions mean he can maintain a larger army longer, increasing summons by nearly half. Satisfied, he confronts Bune, demanding the promised reward. A blue holographic window manifests with a message from the death-observing demon suggesting a change of scenery. They relocate to a deserted tavern. Jin-hyuk takes a seat, patience thinning. He presses Bune for payment. The demon tells him to stop rushing, but he refuses to wait. Suddenly, violet energy descends from the ceiling, crashing onto the table. The force scatters dust and light, leaving a ring wreathed in spectral flames. The design features a grim skull radiating ominous power. Jin-hyuk picks it up, purple fire reflecting in his eyes. He muses his luck has been extraordinary. He inspects the ring closer and his casual demeanor vanishes. His pupils contract in shock as he recognizes the artifact. He announces it possesses demonic energy. The revelation shocks the room. The older man recoils, asking if he is serious. To ordinary hunters, demonic energy is terrifying, synonymous with corruption. The Dark Force Ring promises the ability to wield demonic energy, superior to standard mana, but usually such power requires becoming a slave to demons, bound in spiritual chains suffering agony. Yet Jin-hyuk defies this logic. As he slips the ring on, his status window flickers. His class glows alongside a new impossible stat, demonic energy, set at 10. He bypassed enslavement and claimed the power directly. The death-observing demon offers a handshake. Jin-hyuk smiles confidently, gripping empty air where the icon hovers. He remarks for an item of this quality, he will overlook the entity's previous pranks. Suddenly, aggressive red system windows bombard his vision. The peak of all evil burns with jealousy, frantically demanding a handshake as well. Jin-hyuk leans back, crossing his arms with a smug grin. He teases the entity, asking why he should offer a handshake without receiving anything. He suggests it should bring a gift. The older man watches him haggle with a cosmic horror, asking if he has lost his mind. The red messages flash, describing the entity rummaging through its closet and drawers, looking under its bed for something worthy. Jin-hyuk raises a hand to stop the pathetic display. A massive notification slams down. The peak of all evil has decided to create a quest. Jin-hyuk's jaw drops, his composure cracking into genuine shock. Stunned, the entity has the power to generate a quest on the fly. Purple energy flooded the tavern as the man in the trenchcoat unleashed his demonic aura. A holographic window materialized, announcing that the peak of all evil intended to generate a quest. The necromancer's companion gasped at the opportunity. A demon offering a direct task was unprecedented. Baal smirked with predatory confidence, but the necromancer remained calm, merely noting his surprise. Deciding to maintain control, the necromancer feigned indifference, stating he would do Baal a favor by listening. The system window flickered, revealing the demon's frustration, as text showed the peak of all evil mumbling about how things weren't following his script. Sensing advantage, the necromancer suggested Baal could withdraw if he preferred. The system window shook violently, text frantically claiming it was too late to back out. A sharp chime preceded the quest details. Make himself known throughout the tower before reaching the 100th floor. Failure meant forced servitude as Baal's apostle, but success offered a recipe for anything desired. The necromancer's mind raced through possibilities. A demon's recipe could unlock limitless potential. Despite the steep condition and enslavement threat, the gamble proved too enticing. His expression shifted into a confident grin as he stood and extended his hand, accepting the quest. He reaches out with his bandaged hand, grabs the phantom hand on screen, and shakes with Baal to seal the deal. That night, Hanho tells his team they're not moving to the second floor yet. They have a target, Kim Sung-tae. When Vulcan asks how they'll find him, Hanho reveals he already planted a spirit soldier on the guy for tracking. Vulcan gets pissed about being kept in the dark and powers up immediately. Purple energy swirls under his feet as he sinks into the ground and teleports away. Hanho walks through the forest with his female companion. He pulls out a red demonic mask and asks her about it. She explains the mask lets you use Dokebi abilities. For her, that means seeing the future. Hanho sounds disappointed, saying a combat skill would be way better. She stops and stares at him with wide pink eyes, shocked he's brushing off something so rare. She tells him people used to travel for days just to get a glimpse of what she can see. Back in the day, people would beg fortune tellers to see their fate, scared of what was coming. But Hanho doesn't care about destiny. To him, if something gets in his way, he'll just smash through it. Then she drops a bomb. Her ability isn't regular fortune telling. It's battle foresight, made specifically for combat. Hanho's mind gets blown by how useful that is. He suddenly pulls her into a hug. Her eyes go wide, and her face turns red as he tells her she's perfect. He thinks about the top players in the world, the Sword Star, the Bow Star, the Godly Spear. Against the 9 Star's best fighters, he was always outmatched. But with her foresight, he can finally win. System windows pop up, showing the peak of all evil, and the 9-tailed fox watching them like creeps. Hanho lets go and yells at them to get lost. He apologizes for suddenly hugging her, but she just smiles, happy to help him. His playful attitude disappears as he puts on the demon mask. Dark purple energy leaks from his body. He promises he'll use her power and get her revenge. The scene cuts to Vulcan holding some guy by the face, lifting him off the ground like he weighs nothing. When the masked protagonist shows up, Vulcan asks what took so long. The protagonist ignores him and focuses on the prisoner. He pulls out his sword and points it at the guy's face, mocking him for trying to run away. The protagonist's cold eyes glow purple under his hood. He tells the scout it's simple talk and get paid, or stay quiet and get stabbed. He wants everything about the White Swallow Guild. The scout freaks out and promises to spill everything. After the interrogation, the scout runs off into the forest. One of the protagonist's teammates asks why they let him go. The protagonist watches him leave, not really caring. The scout doesn't matter since he's going to wipe out the guild anyway. Walking through the woods, the group talks about tower politics. From the 10th to 200th floors, tons of small guilds work under the Holy Kingdom. Taking them out one by one sounds boring, but the protagonist sees an angle. He thinks about the Pelin siblings. Taking them down would be huge. By crushing their guilds, he can complete Bale's quest. With a sharp grin, he decides they're heading to the 10th floor. The scene switches to the 2nd floor's safe zone. A huge crowd fills the town square, gossiping about how a small group cleared a massive monster wave. A purple portal opens in the middle of the plaza. Someone in a tracksuit flinches as people step out. The leader walks through wearing a terrifying bone mask, dark and weathered with sharp teeth and glowing purple eyes. The crowd rushes forward, demanding his name and guild, calling him the hero who cleared the wave. A system window reminds him of Baal's condition. He needs to get famous across the tower before the 100th floor. He can't use the name Cha Jin-hyuk yet. He needs to build a legend that makes people fear and respect him. He stares at the crowd in silence, then finally answers. His voice sounds cold and ghostly as he says his name is Ghostface. Bystanders recoiled as the masked man turned away alongside a bearded man in a sophisticated coat and a horned woman in a kimono. The trio dismissed the confusion erupting behind them. Onlookers shouted for explanations, reaching out futilely. Murmurs spread through the crowd about criminals hiding in the tower after committing crimes on Earth. Under the mask, the man listened with calculated indifference, knowing that hiding identities within the tower was common. The wave news and his mask had captured their attention exactly as intended. The bearded man's body glowed with teleportation magic as he told Vulcan they had plenty to do. A pillar of brilliant blue light descended, engulfing the three figures and pushing air outward. The crowd's protests fell on empty cobblestones as the light retracted, leaving only confused murmurs behind. The scenery shifted instantly to a dense forest canopy. A digital interface manifested, welcoming them to the 2nd floor with quest requirements. Defeat 10 kobolds and 10 kobold warriors. Vulcan, now unmasked with dark hair and sharp features, studied the holographic window alongside the bearded man. The requirements seemed manageable. The bearded man turned with sinister eyes behind his spectacles, pointing sharply at Vulcan and demanding he handle the quest by bringing the creatures alive for demonic energy experiments. Dark purple aura flared around the bearded man's shoulders as he levitated into the air, shouting frantically not to use all the demonic energy before he returned. Vulcan watched him fly off, then turned to Haryu, the horned woman, who looked on with concern. Vulcan asked if clearing the quest this way was acceptable, though his tone suggested he'd already decided. He stepped forward, clenching his fist with anticipation about using demonic energy. A swirling vortex of purple and black flame ignited in his palm, crackling with unstable power and casting eerie shadows. He stared at the violet hues dancing in his grip, entranced by the manifestation of demonic power. Haryu suddenly pointed urgently toward the foliage. A creature with reddish skin and pointed ears burst from the bushes, snarling as it pounced. Vulcan grinned wider, thrusting his hand forward to test the power on the creature. A massive beam of violet energy erupted from his palm, but the kobold twisted its body, leaning back at an impossible angle as the magic seared past its face. Haryu gasped, but Jin-hyuk explained coldly that the attack didn't need direct impact. Before the goblin could register the threat, luminous fractures erupted across its skin with sinister violet light. The creature was ripped apart from inside out, crumbling into dissolving matter. Jin-hyuk stepped forward, explaining that demonic energy was savage power that unqualified beings couldn't handle. He lifted a foot ignited by spectral blue flame, stomping the ground to anchor himself. In his left palm, blue soul flame danced. In his right, volatile demonic energy churned. He attempted to merge the energies by clapping his hands together. The reaction proved violent and immediate. Dark lightning erupted between his fingers, destabilizing rapidly. Jin-hyuk grimaced as the soul collapsed, unable to handle the demonic energy. He recalibrated his approach, reducing the energy density from 10 to 1 unit. He carefully injected the refined power into the next summon. A kobold rose from the ether, wreathed in violet flame with far more menacing presence than a standard spirit. The woman clapped her hands, impressed by the fusion. Vulcan manifested beside the creation, admiring the purple aura and dubbing it a demon soul soldier. Jin-hyuk realized that manually imbuing every soul with demonic energy would be inefficient in battle. His gaze slid sideways toward Vulcan as a wicked idea formed. Jin-hyuk smoothly suggested that Vulcan, being more proficient at summoning and battlefield positioning, should handle the summoning instead. Vulcan flushed slightly, preening at the respect. The moment Vulcan's guard dropped, Jin-hyuk struck. He thrust his hand forward, unleashing corrupted purple fire directly into Vulcan's chest. The spirit's eyes bulged as invasive energy flooded his spiritual core. Vulcan bellowed, flailing as Jin-hyuk explained his logic. If demonic energy was imbued into Vulcan's soul, wouldn't the spirit soldiers he summoned automatically become demon soul soldiers? Since Vulcan's soul was stronger than a kobold's, Jin-hyuk would use all his demonic energy. A massive pillar of violet light erupted into the sky, engulfing them both. Within the roaring column, Vulcan's silhouette warped and changed, his screams turning to guttural rage. Jin-hyuk calmly stated that the first spirit master wouldn't die from this. Vulcan roared threats about grinding Jin-hyuk up for breakfast. Above the transformed Vulcan, a massive singular eye opened within black void. Jin-hyuk challenged him to become strong enough, smiling into the abyss he'd created. He declared that his greatest demon soul soldier was Vulcan himself. Vulcan stared back, face bathed in volatile purple aura crackling around his glasses and goatee. He scoffed at Jin-hyuk's arrogance, declaring that creating a summon stronger than oneself was a necromancer's greatest mistake. He threw his arms wide, unleashing spectral monstrosities from the violet void. Ghoulish goblins, massive beasts, and screaming skulls. Jin-hyuk remained unfazed. He glanced at the horned demon girl holding the grotesque dark mask, asking calmly if she was angry. Taking the mask, his eyes hardened as he stated he needed an opponent who could match him with it on anyway. Vulcan roared about demonstrating his demon soul soldiers. With a sweep of his arms, he unleashed jagged, shadowy spirits that surged forward in a chaotic wave. Jin-hyuk pressed the mask to his face, crimson light igniting within its eye sockets. The horned girl sensed the abrupt shift in pressure, realizing he'd drawn upon the artifact's true potential. The world transformed drastically. The rushing spirits now appeared to drift through air like feathers in thick syrup. He weaved through attacks with effortless grace, dodging claws that seemed frozen in time. He understood this heightened perception. This was the world Haryu could see. Vulcan's expression turned to shock as Jin-hyuk breached the defensive line instantly. The necromancer leaped high, purple sparks trailing from his momentum. He revealed that although different now, he used to be called the Death Star. Jin-hyuk drove his fist into Vulcan's face with devastating impact, sending violet energy rippling outward and launching the traitorous summon toward the ground. The horned girl cried out, running toward the impact site. Jin-hyuk landed lightly with the mask removed, assuring her that souls like Vulcan wouldn't die from physical attacks. Vulcan groaned in the dirt, clutching his face. The girl smacked him hard on the shoulder, annoyed by his earlier posturing. Vulcan complained that it hurt when Jin-hyuk punched him. The girl asked if he'd used the mask's power. Jin-hyuk looked at his hand, recalling the sensation of absolute control. Everything felt slower, like he'd become the greatest martial artist momentarily. The Dokaibi explained that what he experienced was merely a side effect of the skill failing to activate properly. Jin-hyuk demanded the mask's true purpose. She reminded him calmly that the mask granted battle foresight, not just slowed perception, but visualization of future actions before they happened. Jin-hyuk grabbed her shoulders desperately, asking how to reach that mastery level. She shrugged with infuriating simplicity, admitting she did it intuitively. Jin-hyuk's expression went deadpan as realization hit. She was a prodigy even among her kind. Asking a natural genius to explain their talent was futile. She asked if he felt dizzy. When he denied discomfort, she explained that forcing special abilities usually caused severe headaches for untrained Dokaibi. Jin-hyuk sighed, realizing he'd miscalculated by rushing the process. He patted her head, assuring her he was fine. Nearby, the spirit master sat curled in a fetal ball. The Dokaibi girl hopped onto his shoulders like a human chair, ignoring his pained yelps while cheerfully thanking Jin-hyuk for treating her better. Their dynamic shifted into ruthless grinding. Jin-hyuk loomed over the terrified spirit master with menacing purple eyes, demanding he lure more kobolds or face having his soul devoured. The spirit master scrambled to comply. System notifications flashed rapidly as they tore through the dungeon. They completed the objective to defeat 10 kobolds and 10 kobold warriors, cleared the 3rd floor with the Spirit Master's reluctant help, and continued through the 4th floor with the demonic mask permanently fixed on Jin-hyuk's face. By the 5th floor, the girl was covered in enemy blood, grinning savagely. Outside under bright blue sky, 2 adventurers gossiped about rumors of Ghostface who entered 3 days ago. One scoffed, assuming the fighter likely perished since the 5th floor spawned goblins with deadly poison needles. Deep within the shadowed woods, Jin-hyuk crouched low with his hand wreathed in blue mystical energy, tracking his next target. High in the dense canopy, a goblin clung to a thick branch. Its movements were silent, skin blending with leaf shadows. Red eyes glowed with predatory intent as it spotted a target below. The creature raised a slender bamboo blowgun and exhaled, sending a poisoned dart tearing through air. Before the projectile struck, a blade flashed, slicing the dart cleanly in half. Haryu lowered her katana, body trembling with explosive fury. Dark crimson aura flared around her shoulders as she growled menacingly at the creature's audacity for targeting her brother. The goblin's malice evaporated, replaced by paralyzing shock. Behind the trembling monster, space warped and darkened. The man in the long coat materialized from shadows onto the branch. Violent purple energy erupted from his hand, coalescing into a massive spectral claw that gripped the goblin's skull. With swift downward motion, he drove the goblin into oblivion. Violet light illuminated the forest as the creature was obliterated by necrotic energy. He landed softly, turning to Haryu with calm approval. Haryu refused to sheath her blade, frustration etched into her posture. She complained about not being faster, that she should have cut the creature down before it released its breath. The older man with glasses watched the exchange, sweat beading on his forehead. His heart hammered as he observed the woman. Something felt profoundly wrong. He focused on Haryu's face where a cruel, sadistic smile spread across her lips. Her eyes burned with demonic light that promised suffering, forcing him to recoil in terror at the monster hiding beneath her human guise. Purple aura flickered around the protagonist as he regarded Haryu with concern. She stood trembling, gripping her sword hilt tightly while staring at her hands as if they belonged to a stranger. When he asked if she was okay, she stammered a confused affirmative, unable to understand why she held a weapon or why manic laughter bubbled from her throat against her will. The dark-haired man stepped forward, his presence commanding the clearing. He announced that after finishing preparations, tonight would bring a monster wave. Later at their campfire on the 4th floor, the leader explained the ecology change ahead. From the 5th floor onwards, kobolds would be replaced by goblins, and their goal was securing the Goblin Slayer achievement. Haryu asked if they would hunt the Lord Monster again. The leader shook his head, explaining that Lord spawns were random and couldn't be controlled. When Haryu questioned their current path's necessity, the leader's expression shifted into a cunning grin as he revealed knowledge of manually creating waves. The declaration left them stunned. Haryu argued that rumors would have flooded the tower if such mechanics existed. The leader explained calmly that he discovered it by chance on the 300th or 400th floor, where a massive crack revealed a skeletal giant. Every floor contained a central area spawning monsters. By continuously channeling mana into this core, the system overloaded and produced enemy surges identical to natural waves. Haryu suspected prior exploitation, but the leader denied it. On higher floors where monsters possessed unimaginable strength, triggering manual waves meant suicide. Even the 4 great species couldn't withstand such onslaughts. The leader reflected that when exploitation was possible, he didn't know about it. But once he discovered it, circumstances prevented use. Now things were different. They would create as many waves as possible to grow stronger faster. Far away on the 1st floor settlement, peace shattered as the ground vibrated violently. Pedestrians stumbled on tremoring cobblestones. 2 adventurers mistook it for an earthquake, but the tremors originated from within the safe zone itself. A dimensional rift burst open above village streets. Panic erupted as green-skinned creatures spilled from the void, a wave manifesting where it should be impossible. Goblins poured out with feral aggression, utilizing tools and raising blowpipes. A volley of darts cut through air. An adventurer in a beanie jerked violently as a dart struck his neck, collapsing onto stone pavement. His blonde companion rushed to his side, but the fallen man was rigid, muscles locked tight from paralytic poison. Before he could drag his friend to safety, goblins closed the distance with glowing eyes. The blonde adventurer drew his sword, but overwhelming numbers broke his spirit. He watched the horde rushing toward him, escape cut off. Tears pricked his eyes as he wailed about dying before reaching the 10th floor. Dark energy concentrated around a silver skull ring, glowing with malevolent violet hue. The atmosphere grew heavy until gathered mana detonated, sending purple light crashing into the street. Dust and debris billowed outward from the impact zone. A survivor stared into swirling smoke, recognizing the infamous ghost face emerging from magical fallout. The masked figure stood tall in the crater's center, cloak billowing as purple aura pulsed rhythmically. Recognition rippled through the terrified crowd, transforming fear into jubilation. The man beneath the mask pulled back his hood to reveal a cocky grin, dismissing their gratitude with a casual wave. He stated he would save them only if they survived to spread rumors of his greatness. Turning his back, he commanded darkness to obey. The ground boiled with shadow as demon soul soldiers clawed into reality. The shadow army lunged forward with feral intensity. Behind the display, a man in a trench coat and glasses roared in frustration, demanding to know why Ghostface took credit for soldiers he actually created. Ghostface ignored the grievance, ordering his partner to generate more troops. Bright blue fire erupted in the middle of formation. Both recoiled in shock as demon soul soldiers were incinerated instantly, their forms burning away. Through azure flames, a psychic goblin appeared holding a skull-topped staff and chanting destructive spells. The summoner shouted they must eliminate the leader immediately. High above the chaotic street, Haryu perched on a pitched roof against moonlight. Her face twisted into a manic expression as she gazed at the goblin horde. She leaped without hesitation, plummeting toward cobblestones. Her blade traced a lethal vertical arc of pink energy, bisecting a goblin in a single fluid motion. Seizing momentum, the bespectacled summoner activated Gluttony. A massive spectral maw manifested, unhinging its jaw to inhale the enemy's blue magic. Feeling power surge through him, he repurposed the energy and unleashed absorbed power as catastrophic purple soulfire that flooded the narrow street, consuming everything. Crimson aura pulsated around Haryu's armored figure, casting dancing shadows. Her katana conducted volatile pink energy that dripped like liquid fire, scattering light petals. A voice cut through tension, trembling with uncertainty as it called her name. A monstrous purple-hued mask seemed to manifest from darkness, its jagged maw frozen in silent roar. The warrior tilted her head, single visible eye gleaming with predatory intent. A sharp grin stretched across her face, confirming the violence to come. Without warning, she struck. Descending from above, she drove her blade downward in a cataclysmic vertical slash. A massive beam of magenta energy erupted from the sword's edge, cleaving air and illuminating wooden surroundings with blinding intensity. Below, the dark-haired man stared upward, purple eyes blown wide in shock. Light washed over his terrified face as he gritted his teeth, paralyzed by the lethal blow descending upon him. A towering vortex of crimson energy tore through the night sky, drowning narrow streets in ominous glow. The masked figure flinched, throwing an arm up to shield his eyes. He realized this was no ordinary artifact. The sword exuded a density of light that turned the air heavy and suffocating. Through swirling mana, a single purple iris snapped open, trembling with chaotic intent. The woman with curved horns and wide grin was Haryu, but her expression warped into pure madness. She unleashed a vertical beam of energy that bisected the world before her. The masked man threw himself aside as the destructive line created a fissure through the street. Buildings sheared apart, foundations crumbling into dust. Goblins shrieked as their hiding spots were obliterated by collapsing architecture. Dust settled, revealing terrifying precision. A thick wooden support beam slid apart diagonally, the cut surface smooth and glowing. She had dismantled the entire village infrastructure in a single breath. Haryu stood amidst wreckage, gripping the radiant katana, her manic laughter chilling the air. She lunged again, blade trailing arcs of pink destruction. He intercepted the blow, gritting his teeth as force erupted from the impact. The shockwave drove his feet into stone. He groaned under the immense weight, knowing he couldn't win in brute strength against this berserker state. He tore the mask from his face, shouting over the energy roar. He screamed his name, Cha Jin-hyuk, begging for recognition, but her eyes remained vacant, seeing only a target. She ignored his plea and swung upward before leaping high. Gravity compounded her power as she delivered a devastating overhead smash that cleaved earth, burying the street in massive debris and violent shockwaves. A voice resonated in Jin-hyuk's mind, rough, impatient, spiked with worry. Vulcan demanded to know if he was breathing. Jin-hyuk climbed out of the crater, clothes ragged and body aching. He admitted he was nearly blown away by her slash. The woman's silhouette stood atop jagged ruins, framed by swirling dust. Glowing violet aura radiated from her, casting ominous shadows. She exuded the pressure of a final boss. Her face twisted into manic, predatory grin, red eyes wide with bloodlust. She was pure chaotic energy waiting for slaughter. Below, the axe wielder tightened his grip until his knuckles turned white. His priority shifted entirely to the threat above. With sharp exhale, he kicked off stone pavement, ground cracking as he propelled himself toward the demoness. As he flew through air with raised axe, sudden chill spiked through his spine. An ethereal purple eye snapped open between them. Battle foresight. Intuition screamed warning. The sword was death incarnate, yet he committed to the attack, voice grim as he declared there were no eternal friends or enemies in the tower. Just as the axe descended, hallucination overlaid reality. The demonic visage was replaced by a bright human smile, and the voice of the girl she used to be echoed, calling him brother. The memory struck harder than any physical blow, causing his muscles to lock in fatal hesitation. He cursed his weakness as sentimentality bled into battle. Haryu didn't share his hesitation. Seizing the opening, her grin widened into insanity. Her hand shot up to counter with terrifying speed. Violet battle foresight flared as she slashed outward. Blood sprayed as the axe wielder was thrown backward, chest searing with pain. Sensing the momentum shift, Haryu screamed a command. The protagonist slammed his hand onto ground, channeling dark power. He summoned skeleton goblin soldiers, commanding bone constructs to swarm forward. It proved futile. A massive red eye manifested, bathing the battlefield in crimson light. Haryu moved faster than the eye could track. In a blur, she unleashed strikes that disintegrated the skeleton soldiers instantly. Catastrophic pink energy erupted from her position, obliterating surrounding architecture. He was forced to retreat, landing sideways on a timber-framed building facade. The horned warrior stood amidst battlefield ruin, chest heaving with ragged breaths. She trembled, leaning heavily on her katana. The protagonist watched closely. She wasn't just exhausted, she clutched her face in pain, dark blood leaking from her left eye. This must be the rebound he was warned about. Her body was rejecting the strain. She could no longer rely on battle foresight. This was his opening. He exploded into motion, foot stomping down with enough force to shatter stone. Debris scattered as he launched himself through air, closing the distance. The sudden aggression caught the warrior off guard. Instead of striking immediately, the protagonist halted just out of reach. He stood tall with confident smirk, raising a hand and curling his finger in mocking gesture. He taunted her. The provocation shattered her composure. Enraged, she lunged forward, blade enveloped in swirling purple energy as she executed ferocious vertical slash. He anticipated the attack perfectly. As the energy-wreathed blade crashed down, he stepped back with calm precision. The sword struck wooden floorboards, biting deep and sending splinters into air. She had overcommitted, leaving defenses wide open. Purple necromantic energy swirled above the warrior, manifesting into a hunched goblin zombie. Perched above her shoulder, the creature raised a blowgun. At the protagonist's command, the goblin fired. He knew the paralytic poison coating the dart was lethal, even to a powerful doka. He roared, violently twisting her body. She unleashed a chaotic whirlwind of red energy, spinning her blade desperately to deflect the attack. The pressure cracked floorboards and sent debris flying. Her manic laughter rang out as she swung with reckless abandon. A sharp thud interrupted her rampage. She froze, registering the sensation in her neck. She reached up, fingers brushing the poison dart embedded in her flesh. Standing opposite, the necromancer clutched his own shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. He revealed the grim reality. He baited her into a blind spot and allowed the goblin to shoot the dart through his own body to ensure it hit her. A suicidal gamble that only worked because she deactivated her predictive abilities. The toxin acted instantly. Her vision blurred, limbs turning to lead. She wobbled and tipped backward. The necromancer caught her before she hit the ground. He lowered her gently, but victory came at a cost. Numbness spread from his fingertips. The same poison now coursed through his veins. He ordered the goblin zombie to retrieve the toxin source. The goblin presented the dart. The necromancer raised it to his mouth, engulfing it in dark necromantic energy and consuming its essence. A holographic window flashed, confirming he'd acquired tolerance to paralytic poison. Revitalized and immune, the necromancer stood tall, purple aura flaring around him. His gamble had paid off in both victory and new strength. The world became a haze of deep blues and shadows. The young horned woman's consciousness drifted. The scene shifted violently to a surreal crimson sky. A massive pale moon hung above, casting sickly glow over endless red clouds. Floating before her was her sword, suspended in the ether. A hand reached out, snatching the weapon with terrifying authority. A voice boomed, questioning if she was the new owner of the Dragonslayer sword. The figure revealed herself, a towering demoness with red skin, eyes glowing with malice. She scoffed, dismissing the girl as nothing more than a child. The girl asked who she was. The demoness replied cryptically before gripping the hilt and pushing the guard to unsheathe the steel. The sound sent paralyzing fear through the girl. The demoness warned that the next time she unsheathed the sword without preparing, she would devour her. The threat pierced through the dream, and the girl's eyes snapped open. She realized she was being carried over someone's back. A large bearded man noticed her movement, shouting that she seemed awake. The young man carrying her asked if she was awake. Disoriented, she asked where they were. He answered calmly they'd arrived at the 6th floor safety zone. Her face flushed deep red as she demanded to know why he was carrying her. The young man sighed, noting her memory loss was upsetting. Later, they settled into a room at the local inn. The dark-haired young man outlined their next move. After recovering, they would push for the 10th floor. Every 10 floors housed a major city, but entry required defeating a boss monster, the Great Orc Warrior. The girl's demeanor shifted to eagerness. She suggested they all go together once healed. The young man cut her off sharply. The air grew heavy. He announced that from now on, she would move independently from them. The girl froze, eyes widening. She stammered, asking if he was abandoning her. He asked if she remembered the 5th floor wave. She hesitated, admitting her memories ended at a certain point. He explained the grim reality. Her weapon was a demon sword that granted incredible power, but the cost was the user's mind. He revealed she attacked him after losing her reason to the blade. The girl looked down, horrified. He stated that if she depended on unstable power, she would break down before reaching the 100th floor. This was her homework. Without depending on that sword's power, climb to the 10th floor on her own. The weight of his ultimatum settled on her. She realized he wasn't casting her aside but forcing her to evolve. Her shock melted into fierce determination. A grin spread across her face. She accepted the challenge, vowing to become strong enough on her own merits. The young man smiled, satisfied. In the bustling town square, the man stood with relaxed posture, a massive spectral figure looming behind him. The girl adjusted her new hooded garment, grateful for protection. She thanked him for the robe. The man offered crucial advice. No need to advertise being a dokebi when journeying alone. He turned slightly, signaling it was time to part. There was no need to rush. He had matters to attend to on the 10th floor. Behind him, the spirit murmured about how sad the moment was. The man focused on the girl, promising to catch up soon. She looked up at him one last time, expression filled with trust, stating she would be waiting. With that final promise, she turned and began her journey. The man watched her walk away, her figure becoming smaller as she stepped into bright, hazy light. He watched her silhouette fade, a silent vow forming that he would reach her, however long it took. Once she was gone, the softness vanished. He turned his back to the light, face cast in deep shadow. The purple energy flared intensely behind him, wrapping around his shoulders like a mantle of power as he strode forward to face the business awaiting him on the 10th floor. Days passed on the 9th floor, transforming the landscape into a graveyard. The ground was strewn with massive orc corpses. The protagonist confronted the last resistance, a hulking orc that cowered in terror, screaming. Unmoved, the protagonist mocked it, comparing the beast to a lowly goblin. He unleashed a devastating strike, fist shrouded in dark energy. The blow sent the orc reeling. With brutal precision, he delivered a high kick that launched it into the air, then drove the enemy into the ground with crushing impact that shattered the earth. Vulcan stepped forward, body wreathed in purple aura. He noted that his younger allies seemed to be getting the hang of their work, reminding him to extract souls for orc demon soul soldiers. Walking along a rocky ridge, Vulcan remarked that creating these slaughter waves had become routine. The protagonist admitted he was enjoying the process. Vulcan's expression turned serious. He expressed disbelief at the protagonist's cold demeanor, pointing out he'd never mentioned Haryu. The protagonist feigned ignorance. Vulcan pressed on, admitting he wouldn't have accepted the girl if he thought she was destined for failure. The protagonist offered his perspective with a confident smirk, asserting she was strong and possessed the drive to exact her revenge. The protagonist checked a holographic quest window showing 997 out of 50 orcs defeated. He gave a thumbs up, but Vulcan remained demanding. Vulcan's frustration boiled over. He demanded to know if the younger man lacked respect for elders or parents. The protagonist answered bluntly that he didn't have parents. Vulcan froze. The protagonist clarified he was an orphan, adding that Choi Gyung-hoon came from the same institution. Realization dawned on Vulcan. He placed a sympathetic hand on the protagonist's shoulder. Vulcan tried to pull him into a hug. The protagonist violently rejected the embrace, shouting that he hated receiving pity. A system notification flashed. Orc Slayer had been cleared. Energy swirled around them, and they were transported to the 10th floor, the room of trials. A warning appeared stating they must defeat the boss monster to proceed. Vulcan spotted a digital leaderboard. The fastest records were all within a minute, belonging to the 4 great species. Unintimidated, competitive fire lit up in the protagonist's purple eyes. He suggested they break the record. Vulcan's face split into a wide grin. The countdown timer appeared, 00:59. The young man stood amidst swirling violet energy. Beside him, his bearded ally summoned shadowy skeletal figures. He dropped to one knee, pressing his hand against cold stone tiles. The ground lit up with complex geometric patterns. He invoked Magic Spear. A massive construct erupted from the circle, crackling with lightning. His eyes glowed with maniacal violet light. He declared he'd show the power of an all-master, adding enchantments, element, followed by resilience and lethal from his ally. He added the final ingredient, demonic energy. The spear underwent terrifying transformation, shifting from bright blue to malevolent pulsating purple. The system counted down. 3, 2, 1. A holographic alert flashed red as the great orc warrior was summoned. A behemoth clad in fur and bone materialized, wielding a massive axe. It never got the chance to attack. The older mage commanded his demon soul soldiers forward. Purple chains and spectral warriors surged toward the orc, binding its movements. Simultaneously, the young man spoke. Gungnir. The massive enchanted spear descended like a judgment bolt. The great orc warrior looked up, expression shifting from aggression to confusion, then to nothingness. The spear struck with cataclysmic force. The creature was erased under the overwhelming weight of energy. The young man stood casually with hands in his pockets. A system timer froze. 00:00.96. The trial was over in less than a single second. A new window prompted, record broken. He entered the name Ghostface with a satisfied grin. Far away on the 8th floor, patrons in a tavern gasped as blue notification screens materialized. One adventurer shouted that the best record wasn't even a second long. Another recognized Ghostface as the wave killer. In the corner, a hooded figure lowered her tankard. Under the hood, a woman with piercing red eyes smiled softly. She whispered that she'd need to work harder. Back in the testing chamber, the older mage threw his arms wide. He bellowed that they'd broken the records of the 4 great species. Violet aura wreathed the 2 figures. The instructor threw a heavy arm around his pupil's shoulders, declaring that not even the greatest spirit masters had achieved such a feat. Under his mask, the younger man asked softly if they were truly the sole individuals to have managed this. The celebration was brief. They strode toward a swirling vortex of blue light. The mentor urged them on, focus shifting to tasks awaiting on the 10th floor. The masked student followed, agreeing to hurry and rendezvous with Haryu. As they stepped into the light, a notification confirmed their arrival, rewarding the accomplishment with significant boost to all statistics. A prompt announced that the auction had been unlocked. Elsewhere, far removed from the tower, a gold coin spun through the air. A hand shot up, snatching the coin with a sharp grip. The setting was a sun-drenched office. A blond man sat at a polished desk, attention fixed on the translucent blue screen hovering before him. His amber eyes narrowed, shimmering with calculation and predatory amusement. He rested his chin on his hand, a sharp grin spreading across his face as he processed the new data. The name Ghostface left his lips in a whisper, his interest thoroughly piqued by this new variable. The 10th floor rose like a vertical fortress. a sprawling metropolis serving as the first true city climbers encountered. This settlement functioned as a sanctuary for those who abandoned the climb, constructing the largest economic hub within the first 100 floors. Walking through cobblestone streets, the necromancer managed logistics through a holographic interface, liquidating his loot to fund potions and consumables. Floating behind him, his Death Knight spirit observed the bustling trade, noting that the physical marketplace remained the true heart of commerce. As they moved deeper, one entity's commercial dominance became impossible to ignore. Every banner and storefront bore the same name: Gold Lich. Vendors cried out about Gold Lich Foods, Gold Lich Workshop, and Gold Lich Inn. The ubiquity confused the spirit. The necromancer explained that Gold Lich Company was the apex predator of the tower's economy. The name referred to the richest man in the tower, whose real name remained a mystery. He sat upon a hoard of wealth so vast it defied comprehension. The spirit recalled the necromancer had mentioned having business in the city. A sharp grin cut across the necromancer's face. He intended to secure a sponsor. When asked who, the necromancer gestured to the logos plastered everywhere. He intended to have the Gold Lich himself back him. The spirit stammered in shock. They arrived at Gold Lich Company headquarters. Inside, the atmosphere shifted to hushed professionalism. The necromancer pulled ticket number 18 from the dispenser. When the display flashed his number, he approached the third counter. The clerk, Halcyon, asked how he could help. When Halcyon asked for a name, the necromancer refused. Instead, he produced a mask, a terrifying demonic visage painted in blood red. Halcyon's professional facade crumbled instantly. He stammered, barely managing to choke out the name Ghostface. The necromancer held the mask casually, asking rhetorically if there wasn't a reason he usually walked around covered. Halcyon quickly shifted to business. The necromancer heaved a heavy sack onto the counter. Gold coins spilled out. 3,000 gold, harvested from monster waves. Halcyon asked what he intended to buy. The necromancer leaned over the counter, eyes burning with purpose. He declared he wanted to buy a meeting with Gold Lich. The receptionist stared in bewilderment. The visitor remained unfazed, reminding the clerk of the establishment's policy. Anything could be bought and sold here. The receptionist tried to regain composure. He explained such a meeting was impossible. Sir Gold Lich was far too busy, and 3,000 gold was nothing compared to Sir Gold Lich's time. The dark-haired man touched his chin, smirk playing on his lips. He admitted perhaps a direct meeting was impossible. Before the receptionist could dismiss him, he cut him off. How much to meet the branch manager? Moments later, the visitor walked up wooden stairs. A spectral purple figure manifested behind him, chiding him for bullying an employee. The man ignored the moralizing, challenging the spirit to provide a better idea. They arrived at ornate double doors. He knocked sharply. A voice from within identified him as Ghostface and bid him enter. The doors opened to reveal a spacious office. A man in pristine white suit sat in a high-backed chair before swiveling to face him. He introduced himself as Puppet, the branch manager. Puppet crossed his legs with superior calm. He greeted the super rookie, acknowledging the request. The visitor noted the big boss didn't seem present. Puppet reiterated the money offered was insufficient. The rookie grinned with confidence, telling the manager to call Gold Lich over immediately, claiming he would undoubtedly want to become his sponsor. Puppet sighed deeply, remarking that making bets based on pure arrogance was dangerous. Hearing him speak so casually about his superior was unpleasant. Puppet's demeanor shifted instantly. His hand snapped up as purple energy coalesced into thin glowing threads. He activated Marionette, explaining he could control anyone entangled in his strings. The threads shot forward, wrapping around the rookie. Puppet coldly dismissed him. The rookie's grin only widened. He asked if this was what the manager called arrogance. Suddenly, he moved. His arm jerked upward with terrifying speed, tearing through the construct. The purple strings shattered like glass. He shouted that he'd wager his arrogance against the manager's skill. Puppet's eyes bulged in shock. He watched his high-level skill, capable of restraining climbers from the 180th floor, disintegrate. Regaining composure, Puppet stood up, expression hardening. He clasped his hands together, purple energy surging. He clapped, and reality warped. The office floor dissolved, replaced by an endless expanse of rippling water. The man in white suit stood against a shimmering horizon, explaining this was the mind realm. But the climber didn't look confused. A sharp glint lit up his violet eyes. He cut in, finishing the explanation with precision, describing it as an infinite realm created by separating soul and mind from the body. The interruption landed like a blow. The man in white stiffened, cold sweat trickling down his temple, unable to fathom how a 10th floor climber could possess knowledge of the mind realm. The climber continued, noting that the laws of reality didn't apply here. They stood atop the vast, rippling surface. The man in suit regained composure, explaining this was a dimension where one had to use experiences and soul strength to fight. He unleashed his power. Violet energy erupted from his body, crackling through the air. He declared that if the rookie won, he'd try to set up a meeting with Sir Gold Lich. The air exploded with answering force, darker and more intense. The climber stood amidst the swirling storm of purple energy, the sheer density distorting the space. He tilted his head, looking at his opponent with absolute amusement. He asked about the power of experience and soul. A terrifying, confident grin stretched across his face, eyes glowing with malice. He knew the depths of hell he'd walked through, depths his opponent couldn't imagine. He stated simply that Puppet was no match for him. Realizing his assessment was fatally flawed, the antagonist's shock twisted into a manic grin. He snapped his fingers, formally acknowledging Ghostface as a peer worthy of his full power. The ocean began to boil and churn. Dark, sleek shapes breached the surface. One by one, a legion of humanoid constructs rose from the depths, their faces marked with glowing symbols. Ghostface realized he faced an entire army of puppets. The antagonist stood amidst his creation, purple mana radiating from his fingertips like puppeteer strings. He explained these soldiers were manifestations of his accumulated experience, infused with mana to rival 50th floor climbers. His laughter echoed as he declared the match finished and ordered the assault. Bodies collided with brutal impact. Dark energy swirled, tearing through the ranks of artificial soldiers. The figure in white watched his constructs get obliterated. The man attempted to rationalize the situation, assuring himself that injuries in this mind realm were illusory. His confidence was short-lived. A cataclysmic surge of blue energy detonated behind him. Terror washed over him as he whipped around. The dark waters rippled ominously, birthing a colossal shadow. Skeletal hands gripped a massive staff, and purple flames ignited within hollow sockets of a giant skull. The man stared up, paralyzed by the sight of the Lich Mage, a boss monster belonging on the 100th floor. Across the rippling surface, the protagonist stood completely at ease. He mocked the effort, dark energy erupting from his shoulders like wings of shadow. He explained that materializing the dead required patience, a luxury his opponent wasted on inferior soldiers. The shadows coalesced into a legion. Knights, mages, and beasts formed a terrifying phalanx behind the protagonist, their eyes glowing with malevolent violet light. The protagonist grinned, declaring that the outcome was predetermined. The man in white trembled uncontrollably, knees buckling under the oppressive aura. Recognition dawned, fueling his hysteria. He identified a Dullahan and other high-ranking horrors, realizing these were entities from beyond the 100th floor. Unable to comprehend the identity of the monster commanding them, he screamed, shouting the name Ghostface as the spectral army bore down on him. The illusion shattered instantaneously. The man jolted forward, gasping for breath as he returned to the physical world. Sweat dripped from his face as he found himself kneeling on fractured stone floor. He looked up to see the protagonist standing over him, hands in pockets. The protagonist leaned down with confident smirk, reminding the defeated man of their wager and demanding an introduction to Gold Lich. A crisp white envelope changed hands. The subordinate looked down at the letter with deference and anxiety, confirming his orders to deliver the message. He hesitated, admitting that if the recipient chose to ignore the correspondence, his influence would reach its limit. The protagonist remained unconcerned, eyes flashing with supernatural violet luminescence as he assured the worried man that a reply was inevitable. The meeting concluded on cobblestone streets outside. The subordinate promised to contact the protagonist's lodging the moment a response arrived. Flanked by a hulking companion wreathed in spectral purple aura, the protagonist accepted the arrangement. As he turned to leave, the man in white bowed deeply. The protagonist walked away, a red devil mask hanging loosely around his neck. As they navigated the town, the purple-wreathed companion suggested they retire to rest. The protagonist glanced back with incredulous amusement. To him, sitting idle while waiting for Gold Lich was absurd. He flashed a cunning grin, arguing that waiting around would be inefficient when there were other places to go. Their detour led them to a grand timber-framed structure, the White Swallow Guild House. The protagonist decided that since they needed to kill time, they might as well fulfill guild member obligations. Inside the lobby, two women sat behind the reception desk, a blonde in light armor looking bored, and another wearing a white hood. The blonde questioned her colleague about tower progress, and upon hearing she reached the 57th floor, grumbled about equipment quotas and tedious work. The blonde's frustration boiled over. She slammed her fist against the desk, shouting about being relegated to guard duty. She loudly questioned which fool would be stupid enough to barge through the front doors of a guild affiliated with the Holy Kingdom. Precisely at that moment, the heavy double doors swung open with dramatic force. The sudden intrusion shocked the two women instantly. The protagonist stood framed in the doorway, arms spread wide in theatrical greeting. The blonde stammered out a nervous welcome, asking what business brought him there. The protagonist paused, looking momentarily confused, before his face split into a disarming, cheerful grin. He laughed, declaring that raiding the tower was simply too difficult, and announced his desire to join their guild.